Alright, riding solo today. I'm Mike. I don't have Byron with me. He is at a wedding and will be absent for a little bit. So this will probably be the only solo podcast that comes out during that time. And this is the NXT and 205 Live review for the week. These are the episodes that were on... I actually have to look up the date now, but it would be Tuesday and Thursday of this week, which were the 2nd and 3rd of August, 2017. We'll start with 205 Live, because chronologically, we opened up with Brian Kendrick versus Jack Gallagher. Didn't actually get a match here. We just ended up with a smudge where Gallagher got disqualified for kicking too much ass and ignoring the referee's instructions. I like that it's a change in character for him, that the whole picking at him, poking at him, prodding at him, making fun of him by Kendrick has created a change in him. But the feud itself is still not something I'm interested in seeing going further on, because Kendrick's promos have not been very good. It's frankly like he doesn't really believe what he's saying, which he doesn't. And the material is pretty weak. It's just, you're a clown, you're not serious, I'm a fighter. And the fighter part doesn't really make any sense because Kendrick seems unwilling to fight Gallagher in any real way. Like, he didn't really want to fight in this match. He hasn't been giving into matches in the past. He's been getting himself intentionally disqualified by, like, using the umbrella as a weapon, for example. He doesn't, like, nothing about this feud really makes a ton of sense. And while I kind of like that it's giving Gallagher an edge, the rest of it is just not very good. And I would prefer to see both these guys, who I have a great deal of respect for, do something else. We had Rich Swann and TJP backstage. They had a wrestling match on one of the WWE games and set up a match for next week. Nothing wrong here. Tony Nese faced Grim Metalik. This started incredibly well. There's an awesome Acai moonsault spot that you honestly should go back and watch, but the match became a little slower, a little sloppier, a little more WWE as it went on. Tony Nese is still a work in progress, but I do like a lot of what I see, and he has a fantastic look. So more of this. Plus, it got Grand Metalik on TV, which they really need to do more of, because he is a fantastic worker. I don't really understand why he's been pushed so much to the side in the 205 Live area. He's been treated as enhancement talent at best, and at worst, completely forgotten. Then we have Neville doing a backstage promo. I enjoyed it. It basically got down to he didn't really care who won tonight. He wants to break both men, and will. So, again, in keeping with the character, it's calmed him down a little bit. It's a good change of pace from, like, crazy Neville. But, also, to be honest, this interview girl actually does a pretty decent job of reacting to what people do. She's not as robotic as the other ones. I'm going to give another one some credit later on in the NXT review. Might honestly be the same girl now that I think about it, but on that front. Tozawa and Daivari had a match. The promo beforehand from Daivari was just not very good. And the match itself had... It was a WWE match. The only bright side being that Daivari got to do some flying stuff and kind of be a little bit more diverse with his offense and a little bit more him. But eventually he falls to the senton and Tozawa gets the win to face Neville at SummerSlam, which is the more interesting match, so I'm happy they're going that route. I don't really think that they can handle heel versus heel dynamics on this show very well. They've shown, honestly, a tough enough deal trying to deal with a face-heel dynamic that I don't really want to see them go down the road of same versus same. So I've been trying to think of this. Like, someone asked me, what do I want 205 Live to be? I keep talking about how the matches are WWE and bland and so on. What do I want from it? Because the thought, I think, is that people who say that want, like, a New Japan-style wrestling, which I do, but I understand that you pretty much have to make it a little safer to make it viable for a company of this size and so on. And that there will have to be some storyline usage that we probably don't really want. Like, we're not going to get the Cruiserweight Classic. We really shouldn't want it because that would defeat the purpose of having, like, a special moment like the Classic itself. But in order to make me care about these guys, I'm going to use an MMA analogy. When you watch a heavyweight fight in MMA, you're getting a very different experience than what you're getting in the lower weight classes. It's sloppier, less athletic, less technically gifted. Worse fight, but with the spectacle of big men and the ability to see a fight change at any given second. And I think you need to replicate that a little bit with the cruiserweight division. You need to let them work faster and do some things that you don't see on the main roster. A good example is the Asai moonsault from Grand Metalik in this match. It was that felt like a cruiserweight moment. The problem is the rest of the match didn't, and none of the other matches did. You have a bunch of guys who are, in theory, much better workers than their larger equivalents, more athletic, things of that nature. They should be able to do some more interesting things with high flying and even mat-based work. Just work at a higher pace, show some moves off that we don't see on the main show, and that could probably lead to us getting a little interested, because as it stands, you're putting 1 hour of cruiserweight action after we've had 2 hours of main roster action on SmackDown. And the crowd is a little burnt out, a little tired, and if you're not going to give them anything that they didn't already get, why are they going to get into it? And it's a little bit more difficult to appreciate a match if the crowd is not really into it. That's, I think, the big problem with 205 Live. And with that, we're going to move on to NXT. NXT was a lot more positive than 205 Live. I really enjoyed it. We opened up with Johnny Gargano versus Raul Mendoza. I liked this match. It was a really good match. High pace, a lot of chain wrestling. Gargano's very good at it. Mendoza's very good at it. I think this is a proper use of Mendoza, honestly, because I think the problem is I've been kind of negative on Raul Mendoza in the past, and it's because when they put him in there with lesser experienced guys, developing talents, people who need to be built, he does a very poor job of accentuating their strengths, I think. I think he's too... What's the word I'm thinking of here? Too... how do I put this best? He's a good wrestler, but he doesn't really understand how to slow himself down and let a guy he's supposed to be looking good. Like, he's a very poor job guy unless you can work his style and do what he's going to do and do it better. Which is why this was, for example, very good, putting him there with Johnny Gargano. But it's not so good when you put him in there with Killian Dane. You put him in there with the Velveteen Dream, which I think was his only other TV show match, and the one I'm largely anti him on. Yeah, I'm correct. Like, I wouldn't let him near that, like a guy like Patrick Clark, because he's not necessarily going to make him look better. He requires a guy who already looks good and can be bought, but you can do it as like an exhibition, come back from injury, get back in the swing of things. Like, this was perfect use of it. I just don't necessarily know if that NXT is really there's really a place for him in NXT if that's his niche skill set, because they don't seem to be interested in actually pushing him as a talent himself. And if you're going to put him in there with up and coming guys, they have to be really ready, like almost where they should already be working against more established guys and doing things in a storyline. So yeah, kind of mix up Mendoza, but he is quite good, and like, this match is a good example of what he can do. Then we had an Authors of Pain promo, which really kind of felt stale. I really expect a lot more from a guy like Paul Ellering on the mic, and this... There was a look at his face, which was kind of weird, where it's like he knew it wasn't very good, and he had to deliver it anyways. It's not the first time on the night that this is going to come up, so... maybe not the best night for the writing, but the in-ring action was quite good. Then we had Ember Moon and Asuka have a promo and confrontation. I really like Ember Moon's delivery and her fire, but the content is quite poor. You have basically Asuka is afraid of me, but it doesn't really make any sense from what we've established with Asuka. Like, Asuka is a badass chick. She's fantastic. She's been reigning for a really, really long time, and including victories over, at least one victory over Ember Moon. The idea that she would be afraid of her is not great. And to be honest, the action afterwards, where they start their scuffle, kind of backed it up, because Asuka sent Moon to the outside. Now Moon got back in, delivered the Eclipse, while Asuka was playing to the crowd, which is a really good spot. But she did get more or less beaten and thrown out. They didn't completely Bayley her, but they kind of Bayleyed her. And that's not necessarily great, but I'm looking forward to this match to figure out where Ember Moon really is. I don't want them to put the belt on her just because I feel like there are better options. Like I personally, if I was controlling that belt, I would have had Nikki Cross win it at the last women's standing match, because I think that was a perfect way to get a belt off of a dominant champion without reducing that champion. And then she can go to the main roster and do some things. But to have her lose to Ember Moon, who I believe there's a huge star presence for Ember Moon. I think long term this is a great project, but I just think that little sloppy, tends to injure himself and others a little bit, has that history, and in the ring you still have that problem. You can kind of see like she's capable of having a very good match with Ruby Riott, for example, but other women she can't really do it with. Moving on, we had Bobby Roode do a promo, standard Bobby Roode promo. Nothing really new. Roddy Strong came in with a run-in and had a bit of a confrontation with William Regal, where Regal told him to basically calm down, step back. There's nothing you can do. I feel like this might lead to a three-way match because he emphasized it's going to be Bobby Roode versus Drew McIntyre at TakeOver, and I feel like somehow Roddy's going to get himself inserted into that, which wouldn't be a bad thing. I still would have... I would have had Roddy take the title. I think he's really over right now, and having him lose to Bobby Roode, especially in the way they did it, I don't think did anyone any favors. Then we had Sonya Deville versus Jenna Van Bemmel. I did like some of what I saw from Deville personality-wise. She's got a little bit more of the heel persona that I think they're going for, which was good. The match itself was pretty bad just because Van Bemmel is either trying to be very slow and play this kind of like lumbering chick, or she is that slow. I don't know which is the case. I'm hoping it's the former because I'm hoping she's not that slow. And it ruined really anything this match had going for it. I think the problem is you're going with this, like, this girl's fast like a Floyd Mayweather or a Sugar Ray Robinson or any number of great boxers, to use an MMA thing, Anderson Silva. But it's not very impressive when you're doing that against people who are just not, who are kind of sloth-like. Like, it wasn't impressive when Anderson Silva did the hands down, dodging your punches with head movement against Forrest Griffin, because we knew Forrest Griffin wasn't really that fast. Like, at the end of the fight, there were legitimate questions about whether Forrest Griffin threw the fight, more so than anything about how good Anderson looked. And the other parts were how bad Forrest looked and how he ran from the ring crying. And this kind of felt, to a degree, the same. It's not impressive. It just makes Van Bemmel look bad. And I think that's a poor use of jobbing talent. Because granted, you don't really care how the jobbing talent comes off. They're a jobber. They're out there to do their thing. But at the same time, you have to realize that, you know, if you're beating people who have no real skills, what does that make you? How does that elevate your mind? And Sonya Deville continues to be a struggle. The gimmick, I think, has some potential, but I think you really need to give her an agent, a coach who can walk her through how to implement MMA into pro wrestling, because it does seem very limited here. She gets the win via triangle armbar, which it was better. I'd put here, this is a better match for Deville, but it's a pretty low bar. Then Hideo Itami had a promo where he started talking in Japanese about respect, and the interview girl actually did a really good job of selling that he was going kind of off the script, as it were. And that's kudos. I would like to see actually more of that. He goes out to the ring, cutting the promo to the people. Aleister Black comes out. Tommy's going to leave the ring, going to let Aleister Black have his time, but then he comes back to try to assault him, eats a Black Mass kick. Hopefully this is leading to a match between the two, because that would be fantastic. I think that would be a dream come true for me. Kenta Kobashi versus Tommy End would be fantastically sick. And we move on to our main event, which was Kyle O'Reilly's debut against Aleister Black. This was a pretty good match. A lot in the way of the Bobby Fish Aleister Black match was a week ago, or was it 2 weeks ago? Whenever Bobby Fish had his debut match and he fought Aleister Black. A lot of MMA stuff done pretty well for the most part. This was the best match of the WWE week by a long shot. They did a very good job of giving them time, letting them work. I think this is about 15 minutes or so, and did by all accounts a very solid job. I will actually look up the exact amount of time. NXT 249, 14 minutes 53 seconds. So I'm very close, but I'm debating whether I like this one better or the Bobby Fish one. But I'm a bit of a Bobby Fish mark, so I think this probably safely is the better match of the two. I'm intrigued to see more. The downside of it is that Aleister Black is going to win against a debuting guy like this. They wouldn't put someone like Kyle O'Reilly over on his debut match against Aleister Black, and it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to. That's kind of why, I hope that both Fish and O'Reilly get a rematch down the road, where I have some apprehension that they're not just going to get Black Mass kicked and ended, that they actually might win. Because I think that would build up the match even more, at least to me, because I think a perfect match is where logically either guy can win, and it makes a level of sense within the booking at the time. And that would be a much better option. And hopefully Red Dragon gets a tag team run, because that would be great. It's a shame that DIY is not together, because them versus Red Dragon would be absolutely fantastic. I would be very much into that. So NXT delivered reasonably well. 2 good matches. One match where you're trying to get someone over. The promo stuff, not great, but not terrible either. A thumbs up show. Again, the fact that your developmental territory program is probably the best hour of TV you have is a problem, because you theoretically have the worst talent, and you're trying to get over inexperienced green people. You're having to donate time to people like Sonya Deville, yet you're actually getting better quality matches and better quality entertainment than off of your main roster. It's pretty sad right now, the state of WWE in that regard, and that's why we don't review Raw anymore. And SmackDown is a couple of bad shows away from actually ending up with the same fate. So that's WWE for the week. I hope you enjoyed. Give thoughts, feedback, always appreciated. Get off of Byron's lawn before he gets back. If he sees you there, he might have to turn the hose on you. And I'll see you next time, hopefully back with my partner in crime once again. And we'll be getting into some more G1 Climax stuff. There seems to be some odd things happening there, like with the Kenny Omega Toru Yano match of, we'll call it the Backlash. I haven't seen the match, so I can't really comment on it yet. I've been trying to save it. Wait for my exquisite comrade in arms to return so we can enjoy that together, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know. It seems like it's maybe blown out of proportion, but we'll see. That's all I got. I do have an upcoming rant about wrestling injuries and how they're somewhat different from sports injuries in a way, which I'm intrigued to hear what people think about. And that is all for this week. So I hope you enjoyed the one-man show, and we will resume dual-man shows in the near future.